Hi there, I'm Haydn Rushworth. I work at the National Assembly for Wales as a Research and Communications Officer, and I'd like to share some thoughts on the subject of political messaging. Now, something that most people who are involved in politics in Wales don't understand is that you can only actually get anything useful done if you are in government. Having a seat in the Parliament isn't enough to make a change to anything. It's a big misunderstanding that a lot of people have, that if you have a seat, then you can make a change, you can make a difference, you can do something. I sit week after week after week listening to and watching the proceedings in the Welsh Parliament and see week after week after week the evidence that if you are in government, you can do anything you want. If you're not, there's not much of anything you can do about it. It's a little bit like being in the back of a prison van, and the difference is, are you in the driving seat or are you back locked up in the prison van? You might all of you be in the same van, of course, but only one of you is deciding where the van goes. The rest can make a lot of noise, can kick, shout, scream and shake the van about a little bit, but you won't make a difference as to where that van is going. And it may seem obvious to say this, but if any political group wants to actually make a difference in Wales, it can only be done in government. The only way to actually be in a position of being in government is to have the majority of the people of Wales voting for you. That's a democracy, that's how it works. That means that if you have an important point that you want to make and something important that you want to do, if you genuinely believe you know how to make a difference in Wales, it will only happen when you're in government, and it will only happen when the majority of the people of Wales agree with you and have voted for you. Now, to do that, there are two ways of doing this. Most people in politics tend to try and force other people to see things their way. That's not how human beings work. If you want to actually make a difference and connect with people, you need to build on common beliefs, and your messaging needs to reflect that. You need to understand what you have in common with your political opponents to build on those common beliefs. And the people who are in the centre ground, who are undecided, who are persuadable, you need to understand why they have voted in a different way to you in the past and how they would vote the same way. Here's the thing that's really, 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 really important. It backfires if you make fun of them. It backfires if you make fun of their dearly held beliefs. It can be very tempting and all too easy to create content that is mocking your opponents, that's making fun of them. What you don't realize is that at the same time, you're also mocking and making fun of the people who agree with them, who hold these beliefs. And you actually shoot yourself in the foot. It backfires because you actually build resistance. Because here's the thing, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Just because you present a really clear logical argument doesn't mean that people are going to agree with you. Another old saying, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. This means that you might logically argue convincingly all the facts and figures that you like, and you might even win your argument. But it doesn't mean that you have won that person's vote. It just means that they go away back into their echo chamber to try and find new evidence to reinforce the beliefs that they want to hang on to. My point is that if you want to make a difference in Wales, you need to charm the people of Wales, not go into combat with the people of Wales. You need to find the common ground that you agree on, not focus on the battleground that you disagree on. Final thought. Was it Aesop, I think, who had this fable, this old story of the sun and the wind having an argument over who was strongest? Humour me if you've heard it before. The sun and the wind were disagreeing over who was strongest, and in the end they decided on a contest to prove once and for all who was the strongest. And the sun proposed that they saw a passing traveller with a coat on, and the sun said, okay, well, The one who can get the coat off the traveller is the strongest. The wind liked the idea of that contest and so agreed, and the wind went first and blew and blew and blew, but the harder the wind blew, the tighter the traveller pulled his coat around his body, until eventually the wind had to give up. And then it was the sun's turn, and the sun shone and shone and shone, and in no time the traveller had removed his coat. Free will is the moral of the story here. People have free will. If you force people to see your point of view against their free will, they'll just pull their coat tighter. But if you show people a more appealing alternative that builds on the common beliefs that you both share, then you create an environment that's really enticing and appealing and inviting to people. And anybody who wants to win a landslide majority in Wales needs to understand you can only do it by building on people's common beliefs and presenting a future and a possibility of hope and optimism. At least if you want to make a difference. If you just want to scare people and win votes, then you can do what politicians currently do to each other. Authoritarian left and authoritarian right just keep trying to scare voters by saying, well, they're horrible, they're rubbish, they're terrible, they're incompetent, they don't know what they're doing, and they just point at each other like pantomime villains trying to say, whoa, but you don't want to let them get you, otherwise, so keep voting for us. It's a cheap strategy that does work, but it doesn't construct anything useful. It just knocks down the other people. But it doesn't actually make you good. It doesn't make you visionary. It doesn't mean that you suddenly know the answers. It just means that you've damaged people's confidence in the other people. For me, I'm in politics because I actually want to make a difference in Wales. I want to make a positive difference, not just hurl rocks at the other people because they're doing a bad job. That's low-hanging fruit. That's easy. That's cheap. That's adolescent. It is not what people do who are genuinely trying to make Wales a better place. You need to lead with a vision, not just do what everybody else does and tries to scare people away. That's my thoughts on political messaging here in Wales for today. Thanks for listening. How long did I go on for? 8 minutes? Oh, if you listen this long, thanks.